we were told you never get a loan for a car, you only get a loan for something that's going to go up in value, which is a house or a property.
This is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset, and strategies. I'm Tyron Shum, and in this episode, we're speaking with founder of Investment Window, Michael Martin. We delve into his background and find out how he went from the financial sector into the property industry, what types of properties he has invested since the age of 21, where he's gathered a wealth of knowledge and experience that he shares with us. We find out about what Martin does and his job description and what his company is looking to help their clients achieve.
I'm a buyer's agent for a company called Investment Window. So we're helping clients buy investment properties across Australia. And what I bring to the table is I can help others by them learning from some mistakes which I've made along the way, which we'll go into today. But my story, I've been in financial markets for 20 years, but I've always had a passion for property throughout that time and held quite a few investment properties, but that's where I am now.
Martin explains what a typical day in his life looks like.
These days, just a lot of research, to be honest, and liaising with mortgage brokers and financial planners, accountants, real estate agents, just trying to get the word out about what I'm doing and my story, and hoping to guide clients into the right investment path. These days, it's just doing a lot of networking at the moment and a lot of research on properties Australia-wide.
With the impact of the pandemic that is happening around the world, we discuss the impact he can see on properties.
It's only kind of really taken off in the last week or two worldwide, but particularly in Australia with airlines, travel restrictions and whatnot. But I think it's going to play into the hands, if you're a buyer, you'll be able to negotiate a lot harder, I think. I heard a story yesterday about an auction which was taking place, and the indicative reserve was about 1.05, and the agent told a friend of mine that they'll accept an offer pre-auction for 950. So sellers are a little bit nervous, so there's some discounts to be had. With the equity markets taking a big hit, you might see a lot of people actually want to move into property, the safety of bricks and mortar, something they can touch and no, it doesn't have the 30% swings like we've seen in the Australian or the worldwide stock markets the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I think ultimately it might benefit the property market, even though there might be a dip.
We delve into Martin's background and find out about the area that he grew up in when he was a child.
I'm a bit of a boring case. I grew up in southwest Sydney, which is Panania, a little suburb. I grew up there. My parents still live there. I married a local girl and I still live here. So I've lived in the same suburb my whole life. I've moved a couple of different houses, but still been in the same suburb. So nothing too crazy there.
He's been living around the same area for over 20 years, and we find out the biggest changes that he has seen taking place in the area.
Oh, massive change in past 10, 15 years especially. There wasn't one duplex in the area. And now so many duplexes around, which is a good thing. But you just notice the difference on the roads. There's just so many more cars on the road, which is just a part of living in Sydney. And all the councils, the government and councils, they've got their quotas where they have to increase their populations, and that's just a part of it. So, but as being a local for my whole life, that's the big thing that I've noticed is just so many more houses or duplexes, or a house which has been knocked down, duplexes put up, and just so many more cars on the road.
After he had finished high school, we learned about whether he decided to continue his studies or jump straight into the workforce.
I started working at National Australia Bank, and I was doing an accounting at TAFE, and then I worked at Concord Council for a little while in their accounts, and then my neighbour helped get me a job at State Bank of New South Wales in the Treasury area, which was something that interested me. When I was young, my dad used to always, he'd get home from work a bit later, so on the news after the sport, they'd have the stock market, how much it went up or down, and this was kind of before the internet. So my job every night was to write down where the All Ords ended every day, and he'd put it in his notebook. So I kind of always had an interest in the stock market when I went and worked in Treasury, which was the money markets and FX and the futures, I had a lot of interest in that, so I really enjoyed that.
You will learn a lot about the financial market when you're working for a bank, and we delve into his experience of working that job.
When I was at NAB, I was just a teller. And then when I went to State Bank, which then turned into Colonial State Bank, so I was in the foreign exchange settlements area. Bit of a funny story. So I was doing that and I really liked it, and I was learning about foreign exchange and the trading. And then at a Christmas party, the Christmas party included the futures team, the money market and the FX. So I was only 21. I was having a good time at the party, let my hair down, and then probably been a bit too loud, I guess. And the boss of the futures team came up to me and said, "Oh, you'd fit in down on the trading floor. Come and see me on Monday." So I thought, "Oh, wow." And then the next day, because my neighbour worked with me, I said to him, "Oh, did I tell you last night that Kathy asked me to come down and see her on Monday on the trading floor?" He went, "Yeah, how good's that?" So anyway, I went down and worked on the trading floor for a week as a practice, and all the guys there were really nice. And so I transferred from the FX settlements department onto the trading floor for 1 year before the trading floor closed, and it then went all electronic. But that was kind of one of my goals that when I was younger, I wanted to work on the ASX trading floor, but by the time I was 20, that had actually closed, and I didn't even know what futures trading was back then. There was a futures trading floor where they trade the interest rate products and the SPI, so the share price index. So I got thrown in the deep end, had to learn all the hand signals and wear the coloured jacket, but that was something that I really loved, and it was kind of a bit of a goal that I achieved early in my working life. So I liked it. It was bloody stressful though, let me tell you. I used to feel sick most mornings just with nerves, because if you made a mistake, did the wrong hand signal, it would cost thousands of dollars. And so it was pretty high pressure. I had to learn to work in high pressure situations. It was really good fun.
Martin shares with us some more details about the hand signals and how you need to communicate on the trade floor.
The pit that I was in, it was kind of the furthest from where the booth, like Colonial State Bank, the booth where they'd get their phone orders and then they'd have to hand signal it to me in the pit. It was a good 25 metres away. So you have to really get your hand signals clear. There was kind of no point yelling out because they couldn't hear what you're saying, but it was some good memories. It was good fun.
We find out about the jobs he has been working for the past 15 years or so.
When the trading floor closed, it went just to electronic trading like it is these days. So then I went back into the office and took the phone calls for client orders and executed them and to manage positions. And so then that was, I think, about 2000 it might have been. So then the past 15 odd years, I've been doing that for various companies. So I've got retrenched a few times along the way, which is pretty standard practice in the financial markets, financial industry. Companies change direction, so collateral damage. So that's what I've been doing the last 15, 18 years.
Technology is rapidly evolving year by year, and Marta delves into some of the biggest changes he has noticed that advanced technology has impacted on.
In the futures industry, or even like the stock market industry, the main one is not as many humans are needed. With computers now, when was it, in the early 2000s, I guess, when everyone started using CommSec to buy their shares. So prior to that, you always had to ring up to place an order. And if you fast forward to now, I reckon there's probably 1 in 20, 1 in 50 people would actually ring up to place an order. It's all done online on the online platforms. So therefore, instead of needing, say, 10 brokers, a company might only need 1 or 2 instead of 10. So if they've got 100, they might only need 10 these days. So that's just why the industry has shrunk so much. So that's the biggest change, I'd say.
The jobs in his line of work shrunk due to the advancement of technology. But what line of work did he see his former colleagues jump into since they left?
The compliance world has taken off in the past 10, 15 years, where everything is so compliant. So I know a few of the guys who have moved into that. Yeah, so many people have just moved out into completely other different areas. Similar to myself, I've always had a passion in property investing and been investing for 20 years. So now I'm turning a passion into a job where I can help others. So I'm an example of someone who was in the industry and now moved into a separate industry. So that's pretty commonplace, and that's what people have had to do. They've had to look for another opportunities because it's a shrinking industry. So therefore, you need to find something else.
We dive into some of the influences that had guided him to jumping into the financial industry.
I kind of had the interest just through tracking the All Ords book for doing it for my dad. I'm not sure why. That kind of had that interest in, and when I'd write down the All Ords prices for my dad every day, they'd always show a clip, a 20-second clip of the trading floor, of the people doing the hand signals and that. I just thought that was really exciting stuff, and I thought that's what I want to do. So it's kind of as simple as that. And then when my neighbour, who was a couple of years older than me, who I'm still really good friends with, he actually worked on the trading floor for free. He approached the company, State Bank in New South Wales back then, and said, can I come and work on the trading floor for free just to get some experience? And then he did that, and that's how he got into the treasury area, and then that's how he helped me get the job. The influences, what you ask, is my neighbour, and then just something as little as how I used to write down the stock market numbers every day for my dad. That's how I got the interest.
He had been interested in property for such a long time. We discuss where that passion initially came from.
When I was young, I remember Mum and Dad, they bought a investment property up the entrance, the North Coast, New South Wales, Central Coast. So they'd go up there weekends every now and then as an investment property. So that was kind of planted the seed in my head. And then my brother and sister were 2 and 4 years older than me. So when they were about the 23, 24, 25, they bought a house as they got married. So I thought, I need to be a part of this. So I was always a good saver. We all were. Dad instilled that in us. He always worked 2 or 3 jobs and told us that you had to save hard in order to buy a property. And we were told you never get a loan for a car. You only get a loan for something that's going to go up in value, which is a house or a property. So I always kind of had the idea that I'd want to do that. And then when my brother and sister bought their home, I thought I'd been saving hard. And even when I had my full-time job, I kept my part-time jobs, which one of them was KFC. And then I got a local pizza shop. I'd deliver a couple of nights a week. So I'd save pretty much all of my full-time job salary, and my casual jobs was my spending money. So I had good savings. So by the time they bought their houses, I had saved enough to buy an investment property myself.
Most of the time, the first investment property brings about the best story in an investor's career. We delve into the story behind Martin's first property.
Well, there was no internet back then. I think it was 1997 I bought it when I was 21. So it was a 4-bedroom villa in just the neighbouring suburb. So I went and looked. It was only 160,000, so it was pretty affordable. It'd be nice if they were that much these days. But in saying that, my full-time job, I think I was only earning 27,000, so I wasn't earning a lot of money. In hindsight, I wish I bought an actual house as opposed to a villa, because like land, you get more appreciation as opposed to a villa. But it was a nice, tidy 4-bedroom villa, which someone was already renting it, so I bought it, and I'm pretty sure they stayed in it from memory. And I think it was renting $230 a week, so interest rates might have been 7.5% back then, so it pretty much paid for itself. So I could still be young and go out partying, and it didn't hold me back.
So did he end up holding onto his first investment property?
No, I haven't. I think maybe 3 or 4 years after that, we got married. I got married to Lisa, my beautiful wife. We bought a home in Panania, same suburb. Because the investment property was paying for itself, we kept it as well as the family home. 2 years later, the investment property had gone up, had about 60 grand equity in it. And back then, you couldn't really refinance a loan to take the equity out. You had to just sell it. So we made the decision to sell it and put the profit into the family home to pay down the debt. Now, it's a profit, which is good, but I didn't stick to the plan. Like, I held it for 5 years. It went up, but a property cycle is 10 to 12 years. And if I had it today, it'd be worth about 850,000. So I'd be sitting on and it'd be getting like 700 a week rent. So a big regret that I've got that we sold it as early as we did. But we had the right intentions, and we thought we were doing the right thing at the time, but hindsight's a wonderful thing.
We gain a little bit of a better understanding of Martin's property portfolio and find out just how many properties he has invested over the last 20 years.
We've bought and sold our family home a couple of times, moved to different parts of the same suburb. Basically, after we sold the villa and put the money we made on that on the family home, a couple of years later, realised, made the mistake. So we thought we need to get back into property, and I got my wife on board, and we went to a few seminars, and we bought a property off the plan in Brisbane. And I think it might have been about 290,000, just only 10 k's out of Brisbane. So it was a good location. Then the next year, thought, okay, this is going good. Saw an ad in the paper. This was kind of the internet was only just starting to take off, so you'd still buy the paper every day. And there was some ad about investment properties. So some slick salesman came out, and we bought a duplex in an outer suburb of Townsville, so a new development in Townsville. And then, so we had the 2 investment properties then, feeling pretty good. Then the next year, this slick salesman gives us a call, says, how about I come out and see you? It's a new opportunity. Did the sales job to try to get us to buy another one in Townsville, or this outer Townsville suburb. And I thought, yep, let's buy 2, actually. So we bought both sides of the duplex in this outer suburb of Townsville. So now we had essentially 3 duplexes in Townsville and 1 in Brisbane. So this was over a 2 or 3 year period. And back then, all the hype was about negative gearing. So get the depreciation benefits. You have to buy brand new. And we got suckered into that. And it's a good strategy. I shouldn't probably say suck it in, but we followed that. So we're holding 4 properties. We thought we're on track. Then 2008 came, and GFC interest rates, just before the GFC hit, interest rates had crept back up to the high 7s. We had 3 young kids at that stage, and then I got retrenched in the GFC. So we had 3 young kids. My wife was working part-time, and took a couple of months to get a new job. So we're starting to feel the strain of the properties because they weren't paying for themselves. Then eventually when I did get a job, I had to take a pay cut, as a lot of people had to do back then, just to get a job. And in particular, the Townsville properties were a bit of a drain. They were starting to lose the tenants. They were probably only tenanted maybe 70% of the time. It was in what I kind of realised, not at the time, but years later, it was a new development. The property spruiker had sold these properties to people like myself, all from Sydney and Melbourne, get sold the dream of a property up in North Queensland, and realise now that the only guys that are making the money are the developers, the builders and the salesmen. So there's a glut of properties that are sold to investors, which drives the rent down. I think the only person who made money was the salesman. We probably bought him a couple of cars over the couple of years there.
We hear about what Martin identifies as his worst investing moment throughout his vast experience.
Well, there's a few lessons. Buying too many in the one location, so not diversifying, is a big lesson, I think. And people like myself in the past fell into that trap, and I'm sure that there's plenty of listeners who have done the same thing. What a big thing I did wrong. The Brisbane property had seen some growth in the 4 years that we'd held it. And because the Townsville properties were causing us some stress with not being rented out as much, I made the stupid decision to actually sell the good property in Brisbane, because that was sitting on about $100,000 profit. So then I could use that $100,000 to relieve some financial pressure. But I still had the Townsville properties, which were not rented out as much. And when they were when I would get a tenant, it would be at a lower amount because economy had kind of hit the fan and it just wasn't a good time. And all 3 Townsville properties, like, they were all in the one, essentially like a mine in an army town up there, where like the concentration, it's too concentrated on one industry. So the big lesson, well, a couple of lessons, I sold a good property to fund the bad properties, and the bad properties were all in the one location. So I hadn't spread the risk at all. Yeah, a couple of bad lessons there. Well, good lessons for people who haven't made the mistake, so that they don't make that mistake. It's really silly when I think back about it. It's just such a bad decision, but and like, even if like there are 3 Townsville properties, if only one of them was in Townsville and the other 2 were located elsewhere, then I wouldn't have been under the same stress, because the other locations might have been better locations with lower vacancy rates. So you just never know. But, well, kind of, you don't know, but I do know that not to put all your eggs in one basket, that's for sure.
We delve into the moment in Martin's property investing journey that made him take a step back and understand the value of some of the mistakes he had made in the past.
It was more recent. I'll just take you back. In 2015, we ended up selling the Townsville properties just because every time the phone would ring with a Queensland number, my heart would sink. I'm thinking, oh no, what's going on? something's broken or I've got to pour more money into it. So 2015, we ended up selling 3 Townsville properties for essentially the same price as we bought them for. So zero growth over 10 years. If I bought, I can't say everywhere else in the country, but in a lot of places in the country, you'd get close to doubling the money if I'd done it right. So a year or two ago, Lisa said to me, my wife, she goes, like, how are we looking for our retirement? And then that got me thinking, oh, damn. Like, that was the aha moment that made me realise the mistakes that we had made. Like, started perfectly buying an investment property when I was 21, and then we sold too early, realised that mistake, then we bought, got back on the property market journey, but then did it wrong. So the right intention, just the poor execution. So I realised some of the things of not sticking to the plan, selling too early, not diversifying, buying in an area too reliant on one industry, selling a good one to buy a bad one, buying off the plan. The list goes on.
An aha moment does not always have to be the best moment, but simply a point in time that everything starts to turn around for you.
Made me go back and assess the journey I've been on, and I'm 40, so the last 20 years there's been mistakes, but I'm still relatively young, and I've heard that many of your listeners who have grown big portfolios in less than 10 years. So I'm looking at a 20-year goal will be much more profitable than the last 20 years of all I've done is research the last year and a half, and now I've aligned myself with some people who are a lot smarter than me to help find the properties in the right location going forward. So the guys that I've teamed up with, they've got this AI technology, which will, like, I'm definitely no IT expert, but they've got the AI machine learning technology, which will find the right locations all around the country, which are prime for imminent growth. So I'm not talking about small mining towns, because I've learnt that lesson, and there's no way I'll be helping other people buying a location where I've been screwed in the past. So that's kind of what I've learned, is to learn from people who are smarter than you. That's how you get ahead, basically. So they've got this platform that they've developed, some cutting-edge technology, narrows down the actual best streets within a suburb. So it finds a suburb first, then narrows down to the street. And whether we like it or not, if there's a higher percentage of public housing in the street, that means that you're probably not going to get as much growth. So it narrows it down right to micro level. So it is an exciting time to be an investor, I guess. Everyone wants an edge. And this is it, in my opinion, of, as you said, my aha moment a year and a half ago made me do a heap of research, dusted off a lot of the old books. I bought a heap of new books and found the people who know a lot more than me, and I've teamed up with them so that I can help other people buy in the right locations and use myself, I guess, as an example of, so that they don't have to make the mistakes that I've made and have so many missed opportunities. Like my first investment property, well, there's 600 grand profit there. If I stuck to the goal of holding it long term, the 3 Townsville properties, that was about $200,000 properties. If I bought in the right location, that would have been 600,000 profit. So it's just, I've got a few examples of where seriously realised some of the errors, and now combining the AI technology into property investing will help investors not make the same mistakes that I made and give them a leg up.
We find out more about the AI technology that Martin was touching upon and go into more detail about how it works.
So it's all data driven. There's like over 100 different metrics that they punch into the system. It automatically updates every 12 hours, refreshes the data. It's pulling it from like numerous different sources, not just from domain or real estate, it's getting it from all government sources. The research has proven the numbers are solid. It's a reliable predictor of future growth. On average, they're seeing 15% growth in the first year after purchase. So if you're looking to build a portfolio, which is what I'm doing now, because I've got to play catch up. But if you're looking at building a portfolio, then you buy today, 12 months time, it goes up 50%, maybe a little bit more. Then you can draw on that equity and buy your next property. So it's the way to fast forward your portfolio. So you buy quick growth, recycle it, get back in.
Looking forward to retirement, Martin shares with us his strategy on how he's going to reach his goals before that day comes.
What we'll be doing, myself and my wife, we're going to hit the property market pretty aggressively this year. And what I'm going to do to be accountable, I'm going to be putting the portfolio on my website so that anyone can see what we're doing. I won't put the exact suburb, or maybe I will after 6 months after we've stopped buying in that location. But yeah, the goal is to you need minimum of 2 to 3 million worth of equity, so that then worth of property investing properties, so that then when you do see the growth in the locations, you will get that double, and then you'll get the comfortable equity, which you can then draw on down the track, and you can have as passive income as well. So I've got a plan in place to build a portfolio over the next 2 or 3 years pretty aggressively, and then can sit on that over the following years. And as the value grows, then we'll continue to buy some more. We've done it before, but now just going to do it properly.
With such an aggressive mindset on how he's going to reach his goal, we delve into the properties that he's looking to add to his portfolio to help reach it.
Positive cash flow, again, harping back onto my experience where they were negative geared. I don't want to be in that position again. So looking for positive cash flow property, about the 300,000 mark will be the first one. There are plenty of locations around the country, again, not in mining towns, but in established suburbs where you can get positive cash flow for the 300,000 mark. So we'll be looking to get a couple of them, and then because the positive cash flow, the serviceability will be there, will increase, and then look to get more solid one where it won't be as much about the cash flow, be more about the growth, combining 2 or 3 properties together as a package, and then look to replicate that. It'll be a good opportunity, I think, in the next couple of months for property investors. And like if it's done right, property is definitely like the best and safest way to generate solid asset base and passive income, I think. A couple of years ago when we sold our Townsville properties, we were like, that's it. We're done with property. It only causes trouble. And then with my aha moment, it was like, no, it's good. You just have to do it right. This is what my research over the past 18 months and finding the right people who I've got on my team, it can be done, and it's not that hard. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to make the mistakes, which I have made and others have made and will continue to do, unfortunately. But yeah, it can be a pretty easy process.
For many people, the struggle is getting to the market and buying property.
From a personal point of view, get your finances in order. So get rid of your credit cards. If you don't want to get rid of it altogether, bring it down to like a $1,000 or $2,000 limit, because the higher your credit card limit, even if it's not even drawn, if you've got a $10,000 limit, that could reduce your borrowing capacity by 70 or 80,000. So just something simple like that we've done, and just cutting back, making your bank statements look a bit neater so that there's less reasons for the banks to lend you less money. But we're lucky we've got some equity in the house, so we'll be drawing on that. But as you mentioned, teaming up with the research team has been a massive eye-opener and a massive help, and just been an enormous, all this research that I've done, I can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
We've already discussed the impact that retirement is having on his journey going forward. But is that his main why factor?
Yes, and the passive income, the retirement and the passive income, because being previously my dad worked for the same company for 48 years or something, and he couldn't believe that I've worked for that, lots of companies, and I've been retrenched 4 times. So I've got, my wife's a school teacher, so she hasn't got any job insecurity, but I've always had that job insecurity because I have been retrenched in the past through, not through any fault of my own, just through the industry I work in. If you've got some passive income from rental properties, then if you were to lose your job, in whatever industry you're in, it softens the blow. You've got less stress. So that's something that is important to me. That's what I'm looking to do. So you build up the portfolio, you've got the equity in 10, 15, 20 years' time, plus you've got the passive income. So it's a double win. So that's why property is so good.
It is important to surround yourself with people that are supportive and can help you when needed. And we find out about some of the people that were able to help him.
Back when I was starting to invest, there was a guy I used to work with. I think when I bought my 4th property, he had then bought his 13th or something. And he was someone that I really pick his brain. I wish I picked a bit more. It might have stopped me making some of the mistakes that I made. However, I think it's important to have someone that you can get feedback off. And even like one of my good mates, he's got quite a few properties as well. So it's good to, as I said earlier, you have to surround yourself with people smarter than you. So if you're looking to get into property, you need to talk to people who have experienced investors, whether good or bad, just so you can learn from the mistakes and learn what to do and learn what not to do. But like in my heavy research, where I've been going nuts the past year and a half, I've spoken to lots of experienced buyers just to chew their brain and just try to get as much information as I can, and which is where I'm up to now. I think it's really important to align yourself with smart and successful people in whatever field you're in.
Martin has spoken to a diverse group of people, from buyers and investors, and he shares with us some of the key takeaways that he's picked up from these discussions.
Some of the takeaways that I personally took away, because I think it's more relevant to my past experiences, is having the higher cash flow properties because of like the job insecurity in the past. So if I was to lose the job, not to be forced to sell an investment property. So having the higher cash flow, positive cash flow property is pretty important for me. So that's one of the key takeaways I took. And then to buy in an area where it's not reliant on one industry and it's got a low vacancy rate, because if you've got a property and if the vacancy rate's 5%, you can't afford to not have a tenant in there for 3 or 4 weeks of the year. If you're in an area where there's only a 1% vacancy rate, then you've got a lot better chance of when a tenant moves out, within a week you'll have a new tenant. So I just think the cash flow is vital. Of course, the capital growth is vital as well, but you don't want to be forced into selling a property because you can't afford to hold it. That's really important in my books.
We learn about how you're able to balance your portfolio between capital growth and cash flow as well.
In my own experience, I held in Townsville for 10 years and sold for the same price, so there was zero growth. So that is where the IT team that I've got with the AI machine learning technology that incorporates that, and we can say, okay, I want a 6% yield and potential growth of 5%, 6% going forward. And the technology will generate a report, give an estimation of where the property will be valued over the next 10 years. So they're not impossible to find cash flow positive properties in growth areas. So even just look at in Sydney, out in Penrith 10, 15 years ago, you could buy a property for $200,000. Smart people might say, well, you don't want to buy there because you want to buy in a city where you're going to get higher chance of getting growth. You can't buy anything under 400,000 out there. So that's growth happens everywhere. But what I'm very conscious of is, with my own experiences of utilising the IT world to increase my chances of getting both, which is possible, which is growth, which is the vital thing, plus the cash flow, which helps fund it.
We hear about some of his best book or podcast recommendations.
I'm a big podcast listener of yours and others. I dusted off a lot of my old books, but some of the more recent ones I've listened to: Property Millionaires Exposed, the 4-year-old property investor. I forget some of the names of the others, but I've done just a lot of reading and a lot of listening to get where I am today. Yeah. An Armchair Guide to Property Investing, that's a good one. Ben Kingsley, Bryce Holdaway. Got a lot out of that as well. So that's probably the highest recommendation one I'd give, actually. Even Paul Glossop's one, Surfer's Guide to Property Investing, that's not a bad read. Like, you read all these books and ultimately they're kind of all the same. But you take a little bit out of one, then you read another one and think, oh yeah, they mentioned that in that book. So you take a bit more out of it. It's just always trying to grow.
What do you think has been the best advice you've ever received?
Don't give up. It's never too late. You have to believe in yourself, work hard. Yeah, just kind of giving you just little bits there, Tyrone. But my parents instilled a strong hard work ethic. I think if you don't work hard, you don't go forward. You have to make the right decisions and try to keep learning and surround yourself with people smarter than you. I think that's pretty important.
Martin shares with us some of his own personal habits and how they've impacted on his success.
I'm a good family man. I've got 3 teenage kids. Trying to instill the habit of saving into them. The three of them work part-time jobs and make them save a certain percentage of their wage every week. So if you work longer hours, then you can keep a bit more as your play money. But they keep saving, and they're 14, 15, 16 now. By the time they're 21, they'll have enough of a deposit to buy a property themselves. So I'm just trying to instill the habit of saving into my own kids. And the last 2 years, they've listened to all my goings on about property. And I think the penny might have dropped with them that even if they don't want to do it themselves, they'll feel like they have to because I want them to so much. And when they're old enough, they don't need to buy a $10,000 car. A $2,500 car will still get them from A to B. And it's just not wasting money. Like, we're always money conscious. Everyone is and should be, I guess. So it's just not wasting money here. But get your money working for you.
You learn the most from the mistakes you make along your journey. And we find out what Martin would have liked to tell his younger self.
Don't worry. Just reset and start over. Don't dwell on the negatives. Embrace the positives.
Martin shares with us what he's most excited about achieving in the near future.
I'm just excited to be making the right decisions and knowing that I've done a hell of a lot of research to have the absolute confidence that we will be making the right decisions, unlike previously where I was probably liked others. I've got so many investment properties. Yeah, woohoo, well done. But what's the point of having them if they're not in the right location or if they're going to work against your own situation? So I'm looking forward to knowing that I'm doing the right thing because I've done the research. So I've got the confidence. And with the business, I'll be helping a lot of other people as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that.
We get his opinion on the tricky question of how much of his success does he put down to luck and how much does he put down to hard work and skill?
I don't think much of it's luck, to be honest, because you've heard the story, and if I had better luck, I wouldn't have needed to come to the realisation that I need to put in the hard work, to do the research, a ton of research to know what the right thing to do is. So I don't think there's much luck there, to be honest.
Thank you to Michael Martin, our guest on this episode of Property Investory. If you'd like to hear Michael's full story, simply visit propertyinvestory.com.